Welcome everyone to this evening special event in World Unity Week. We're here on this day celebrating and commemorating the theme of answering the call. And to that spirit, we've got a tremendous panel lined up for you today. Paths on the way of unity. And this is something that has been really coming together since the publication of the Interspiritual anthology that Kurt Johnson was steward of a couple of years ago, and the more recent book by Robert Atkinson, one of our speakers tonight, who's published a book called The Way of Unity, which we're going to be talking a little bit about. It's an award-winning publication, and we've got an incredible panel also then connecting interspirituality with positive media. So that is a really fantastic and interesting combination to bring together these thought leaders from the interspiritual paradigm and awareness, and then to connect that to the idea of positive media and what's emerging in that space of positive media. We've got a truly phenomenal and eminent lineup here, and it's my honor to begin by bringing forward the one and only, speaking of eminent, Dr. Kurt Johnson, weaver of all things together. And Kurt, it's such a joy to have you here with us for this program. Welcome back to World Unity Week. And we're really excited about what's been prepared for today with this phenomenal program.
Yeah, Ben, thank you so much. And everyone, welcome to this program, Paths of the Way of Unity, Interspirituality, and Positive Media, where we're joined by prominent authors and activists from both the interfaith and interspiritual arena, Dr. Robert Atkinson, Reverend Diane Burke, Reverend Deborah Moldow, Reverend Cynthia Bricks, and Kate Sheehan Roach, and also folks from the media world, Roger Briggs and Amanda Sanders. I'm Dr. Kurt Johnson, of course, of Unity Earth and the Light on Light Press and interspirituality.com. Now, complete bios for all of our guests are at the World Unity webpage, and they're also at evolutionaryleaders.net. So we're centering on several things in this program, but as a package, their elements are involved in things that are absolutely crucial to our future. In a nutshell, we're going to be talking about why the messaging of unity in all of its elements and facets is critical to our world future, and why media in what is today is a media-dominated and narrative-dominated world really is going to determine our future direction as a species. And to succeed in our own messaging, having an effective and sophisticated delivery system for our critical messaging is going to be crucial. Now, we know that all of you here that are listening are already a part of this awareness, and you're already part of this work. So we can refresh that just a bit with just a few comments about that. When we look at the titles of the elements in this program, unity in the context of interspirituality, the relationship of all the world's wisdom traditions that speak of high values, and the importance of media messaging, we only need to turn on our television sets to see a violent and conflictual world around us that is so different from that view. And we remember the words of theologian Hans Kung at the founding of the United Nations, where he said, there can be no peace among the nations until there is peace among the religions. And we are a long way from that goal. His Holiness the Dalai Lama has really summarized it well by saying, the problem is very simple. Our higher values are not where power is today, and where power is today is not where our higher values are. And regarding messaging, we've all been saying for years, change the story, change the future. And we've seen how media, and especially today's screen media, which has ushered in a mis- and disinformation era, has shaped a very different world than the world that we're hoping for. And this shift has actually been called recently by sociologists an evolutionary catastrophe. A stark example recently is the replacement on the lawn of fountains of our own White House by a huge cage in which modern gladiators portray violence and harm as exemplifying the best that the world has to offer or wants to see. And recent documentaries have showed the long and hugely money-funded media activities that have normalized and even made popular these kinds of violent behaviors. With that said, the title of Dr. Robert Atkinson's 2026 Nautilus Award winning book from Light on Light Press, which we're also spinning off of today, really says it all. And the book is The Way of Unity, Essential Principles and Preconditions for Peace. And as Ben said, all of our guests in this discussion today are also contributors to Light on Light's 2025 and 2026 books, the 2 volumes, Interspirituality, the Heritage, and Interspirituality, the Future, which really outline the entire messaging and vision of the interspiritual paradigm. So we're going to join that today with a discussion of a major new initiative with regard to messaging, the Positive Media Laboratory, which is an exciting initiative that's been over a year in the making through collaboration between the evolutionary leaders community and other impact networks. This exciting sharing on media challenge that we are in today, and what an effective, sophisticated, high-tech platform could bring to the impact of our own messaging, we think is going to excite all of you. So we're going to begin with Dr. Robert Atkinson talking to us a bit about the message of his book, The Way of Unity, and then we're going to move to a discussion with our interfaith and interspiritual guests on the values that these great traditions bring and why it's that messaging and not the messaging of dominance and conflict that is the positive message for our global future. And then we'll go over to Roger Briggs and Amanda Sanders to tell us about the Positive Media Laboratory and how it sees not only the dilemma and challenge of modern media today, but what we can do in the transformative community to be a voice that can potentially turn this dilemma around and toward the world of sacred values and love that we all wish to see. So thanks to everyone for joining us, and over now to Dr. Robert Atkinson, who with his Nautilus Award for The Way of Unity is now a 4-time Nautilus Award winner. And he'll be speaking about his book and then engaging our guests. So Bob, over to you.
Thanks so much, Kurt and Ben, for bringing this program together. I'd first like to thank Kurt and the entire Light on Light Press team for their support of this award-winning book. And my deepest gratitude also goes to all of our panelists for contributing their perspectives to this program. And thank you all for being with us. We're here to celebrate Brother Wayne Teasdale's vision, to give that a little framework, a possible direction, and to reflect on how this message can be shared widely with a larger audience. From his mystic perspective, at the turn of the millennium, Brother Wayne Teasdale sensed that we had arrived at a time when certain historical circumstances were in place for the convergence of all sacred traditions. As we move forward toward greater levels of cooperation and collaboration, we are also moving closer to the fullest expression of our innate wholeness. This is exactly what Brother Wayne Teasdale recognized, that a shift in consciousness is bringing about an interrelatedness of all spiritual traditions, a new interconnected universal civilization, an ecological awareness of the natural organic world, and an emerging unitive consciousness that is available to all. Exploring these convergences more closely in my book, The Way of Unity, I focus on 3 distinct characteristics of interspirituality, or a universal spirituality, as envisioned by Brother Wayne Teasdale. First, there is a direction and purpose to the evolution of spirituality. Second, there are unitive principles that guide this evolutionary flow. And third, the outcome of this evolutionary process is a universal spirituality fully integrated with social action and service to others. The Way of Unity offers a container for an all-embracing vision of such an evolutionary process. A holistic overview of humanity's spiritual heritage reveals collective leaps of consciousness throughout our history. This is evident in two quite different models used to illustrate humanity's collective spiritual evolution and the essence of each tradition. Because each look at religion from different perspectives, they see different things. First, sacred activist Andrew Harvey's model approaches the sacred traditions from an esoteric perspective, emphasizing their changeless, eternal, or mystic aspects. Second, religious scholar Stephen Prothrow's model takes an exoteric perspective, identifying the changing social conditions each tradition has responded to. But what is evident in both models is how each sacred tradition has contributed a unique quality in the evolutionary process toward world unity. Each sacred tradition has offered its own way of approaching the sacred in this unfolding process. All sacred traditions are within a single evolutionary flow and guided by a divinely inspired force impelling humanity toward its destiny. It is now time also to add to these models the Way of Unity, what might be characterized as the Baha'i approach to the sacred. Out of the division, discord, and inequality of mid-19th century Persia emerged a spiritual renewal with a unitive worldview and a set of principles designed to bring about the unity of the entire human family. After a century and 3/4 of continually expanding circles of unity, from the end of slavery to women's rights to the ongoing civil rights movements, we can see that an awareness of creation as grounded in unitive consciousness has been evolving gradually, unfolding in stages toward a new vision of the convergence of religion, spirituality, social action, community building, and peace building. In its original sense, religio means to bind together. This is exactly what a divided humanity needs most right now. So, a spirituality for our time would involve a dynamic process that brings about and maintains unity on all levels: personal, interpersonal, and global. A universal spirituality for the 21st century and beyond would recognize the unitive nature of the entire creation and the flow of evolution that defines humanity's spiritual heritage as well as its future. The Way of Unity explores how the principles needed to bring about unity on every social level, from personal to interpersonal to global, are already being put into practice. Previously proposed as a model for study, thousands of Baha'i communities worldwide have been nurturing patterns of coherence to build strong, vibrant communities for over a century, living by a common set of unitive principles in their everyday lives, creating an infrastructure of local communities that grows in the manner of an organic renewal process. This approach sees the welfare of any part of the human family as tied to the welfare of the whole. These social action initiatives, often undertaken in cooperation with government agencies and civil society organizations, follow a collaborative learning process consisting of study, consultation, action, and reflection on action, all underpinned by spiritual guidance and knowledge drawn from science, which results in a unified social action carried out toward a common goal. So a universal spirituality is much more than an inclusive belief system or an all-embracing vision. It must be this plus the use of strategic tools for carrying out social action in the world. A universal spirituality consists of a world-embracing vision to bring about unity that is put into action in the real world to achieve a fully integrated, holistic, and dynamic social renewal process. This may be the only way we'll realize world unity and planetary flourishing. This is what we'll focus on here. So let's move right on to our panel. We have with us, as Kurt mentioned, 4 outstanding leaders of thought, and we'll start with Reverend Cynthia Brooks, move on to Reverend Deborah Moldow, then Reverend Diane Burke, and Kate Sheehan Roach. Cynthia?
Thank you, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm in Portugal, so it's about 1:15 in the morning. So I'm wide awake, ready to go. I want to just start by saying in my humble opinion, my experience, we are born from love and we die back into love. And our work in between that being born and dying is to walk hand in hand as sisters and brothers and gendered siblings of all different faiths, different cultures, different religions, different classes, different sexual orientations, age, and the list goes on and on. Our message in interspirituality is really for me, is to create safe spaces, to say you are not alone. We are not alone, because ultimately there is no other. And our work, my work, is learning about each of you, learning about myself, learning about each of you, so that I can come closer to the ultimate reality. You know, we come from the same source, called by different names, and we are called to walk together in the highest love with compassion and respect for one another. So when I reflect on inner spirituality, and particularly the messaging of what we're trying to get out there in the world together as a collective, is to say you're welcome here. You're safe to enter through these doors of inner spirituality into this community, and you will find friends here. I'm reminded of the Father Thomas Keating, who did the work on inner faith and inner spirituality, and he said our task is to become friends. And so how do we do that? It's really, for me, coming together in contemplative practice, in meditation, in prayer, in ways of community, and in service together. In particular, in this time of polarization and strife among people of different faiths, cultures, race, gender, the inner spirituality message, well, it's not only a message of unity, but it's really a message that calls us into the privilege and responsibility of actually walking our talk toward bringing conscious healing, reconciliation, and transformation into beloved community. What's that mean for my work and my work in community? I co-founded a work called Gender Equity and Reconciliation International, Jerry, we fondly call it, with my husband and partner, William Keepin. But it's not just about us. We have a whole global community. And in paraphrasing the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, who said, injustice and corruption will never be transformed by keeping them hidden, but only by bringing them out into the light and confronting them with the power of love. And that is the essence of the work that we do, and that I wrote about in the inner spiritual volumes and the books. that we need to create safe forums for people to share their story. And in particular, in our work, it's about sharing our story around gender and gender healing, around gender and sexuality, without shame or blame, but to really come into a place of deeper respect, deeper compassion, more understanding, and a place of higher reverence of one another. And when we do this, we come into a place of belonging, a place of more harmony, a place of more unity. And so within the work that we do, it is bringing people across the globe from all different cultures. We've introduced the work in 18 countries to over 30,000 people. And it truly is people walking that talk, as I spoke about. It's about coming together and learning to live together in beloved community, not bypassing the injustices that have happened, but working to speak truth to them, creating a safe forum for that, and being able to come to a place of healing so we can create the new civilization on earth, so we can come into community around interspirituality. We all know that, I think we all know that injustices, sexual and gender oppression have happened across all the spiritual and religious traditions. So it's not to wallow in our pain and suffering around that, but it's to acknowledge that so that we can heal from it and move on into new places of being and living together. I'll just close with one other piece here real quickly. I just want to uplift one other place at the core of interspirituality is bringing women's voices forward and empowering the prophetic voice of the feminine and the feminine divine. And that's not to discount the masculine. We need all voices across all the gender spectrums to be heard and appreciated, and every person and every voice in the conversation around interspirituality. And then finally, I just like to say that gender entails multiple dimensions, and every human being has a legitimate voice in this conversation. Women across the world religions share a very similar experience around gender and sexuality, particularly in terms of their unique challenges in spiritual and religious life. Similarly, the LGBTQ+ communities have also experienced common afflictions across religious traditions. Cultivating skillful, non-judgmental awareness of these imbalances is crucial for not only the gender work that we need to do, but the spiritual work we need to do. Creating these safe forms is essential. So I'll just close with one final quote from the Reverend Ray Hammond, who is a pastor in Boston. He put it, "Radical love and community is not just what we preach and teach, but who we are and what we do." So with that, I'll close, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Cynthia, for bringing your voice. Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Cynthia. That was beautiful. I'm just delighted to be here with all of you, but especially with my fellow interfaith ministers, because we're part of this vanguard of interspirituality, and it's a delight to share this program with you and all of those who are listening. In today's fractured world, we are gravely short of a unified vision to give us hope for the future. Older bonds of religion and community have given way to the path of individual achievement and even glorification. And yet the challenges we face today cannot be adequately addressed by individual heads of state, billionaires, sports heroes, or rock stars. Climate change is creating earth changes. Political turmoil threatens global stability, and the inequality gap is widening across the globe. But these issues don't merely require a powerful leader or a new technology upgrade. They are calling for humanity to rise up to our essential oneness with one another and also with the natural world that gives us life. As Bob mentioned, the word religion is based on the Latin for to tie or bind back. In the past, religion gave people hope and moral guidelines. And if your religion gives you those things along with meaningful rituals, customs, community, and prayers, then it is serving you well. But if it's tying you back to a dogma that narrows your worldview, then your spirit is yearning for something more. The word spirituality, on the other hand, is based on the Latin for breath. So let's take a deep, inspiring breath together to address why interspirituality is key to a radically different future. And by the way, we're going to get a radically different future in any case. So let's try to shape it for the greater good. We are never going to be content in a bubble of safety and abundance if the world is burning around us. Just as the environmental movement taught us that we cannot simply use our waterways as garbage dumps without dire consequences. And the changing climate is teaching us that your fire is my smoke, and that one hurricane or volcanic eruption completely paralyzes air traffic across a whole continent, and that our young people deserve a vision of hope and abundance. If we're going to wake up and step into the next level of human consciousness, where we see the divine in one another's eyes, and we feel part of every aspect of the natural world, we need to learn to connect at the heart. Imagine a world where every business is based not only on making a profit, but also on contributing beauty and service as part of its mission. We know this world is possible because we can all see it unfolding right now. There is a new spiritual energy infusing our planet where more and more people want to contribute to the greater good. Meaning and purpose are not only about well-being for ourselves and our loved ones, but about being part of a far greater vision of peace and prosperity for all. This kind of spirituality 2.0, if you will, is based on tuning into our inner guidance, listening to our intuition, that still small voice within, and taking a cue from His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, who famously says, "My religion is kindness." This is a spirituality that lives deeply in people of all faiths and none at all. This is where our interspirituality lies. So, how will this emerging spirituality reach around the planet? Well, it already is. The light in your heart illumines the flame in mine, like a candle being passed around a dark room. New efforts like the Positive Media Lab that we're going to hear about today, like Hubcast and other visionary media efforts, will become more and more widespread as the light grows stronger and stronger. And people who live the way of unity will no longer be satisfied with media that gives us bread and circuses, YouTube and TikTok, sports stadiums, car chases, addictive television series, and deafening music. Although we may still enjoy all of these from time to time. But what nourishes us is, as an awakening humanity, is that which inspires us and rekindles our flame, urging us to ever greater creativity and service. There's an old saying about the futility of preaching to the choir. Well, I sing in a choir, and I am sure that if the sermon touches me, it will reach the rest of the congregation as well, and that we collectively will carry it in our hearts beyond the church walls. So let us together, especially during World Unity Week, build that field of new consciousness. Let us spread the joy, the hope, the vision, and the love. Let us answer the call. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. And on to Diane.
Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, all of you, for being here. Einstein said we will never be able to solve the problems that confront us from the same level of consciousness that created those problems. And I think it has become more and more clear that the chaos and dysfunction that we're experiencing collectively in the world are the inevitable outcome of the consciousness of separation. The paradigm that says that we can live separate and cut off from the larger fabric and web of creation. And the antidote to the consciousness of separation and all that arises from it, divisiveness, competition, conflict, the consciousness of scarcity, and a view of life as a zero-sum game. The antidote to all of that is awakening to the fundamental unity of being and the interconnectedness of all of life. That recognition lies at the heart of the mystical, lies at the mystical heart of all the great spiritual traditions and teachings. And interspirituality is lifting up that awakened awareness as the very heart and center of our shared heritage of wisdom. For many years, but especially in the last several years, I have found myself with a heightened sensitivity to synchronicity. And so this morning, as I was thinking about the panel this evening and the questions being posed, an email showed up in my inbox from one of my favorite Substack authors, Reverend Cameron Trimble. And the email centered the image of Indra's net, which of course is such a beautiful image to hold in awareness as we contemplate unity. Originating in the ancient Vedic texts of Hinduism, and later expanded on as a metaphor in Mahayana Buddhism, Indra's net describes an infinite cosmic net or web with a brilliant, multifaceted jewel at every node, every point of intersection. And because each jewel is perfectly reflective, every single jewel contains the image of all the other jewels in the net. If you focused on the reflection of one of those jewels in one of those facets, you would see the reflection of every other jewel in the net. Everyone is inseparable from everything else. So Indra's net teaches us that all phenomena in the universe are completely interconnected. And in Thich Nhat Hanh's wonderful language, that all things in the universe are. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything is connected. And everything affects everything. Every jewel reflects every other jewel. Of course, modern science is recognizing this as a foundational structure of the universe as well. So it's not simply metaphysical. It's the nature of reality. Now, again, the dominant paradigm of our culture is actually the opposite of this, that we are separate individuals and that our own well-being is not intertwined with and dependent on the well-being of everyone and everything else. We believe the myth, as Deborah alluded to, that we actually could exist in a bubble of well-being when the rest of the world is burning. That's called insanity. The idea that we can sort of section off our little piece of the net and not be affected by the fraying and trembling of even the most far-flung areas of this magnificently intertwining web of connectedness. As the world is becoming more connected, the falsity and insanity of that paradigm is becoming clearer and clearer. We've seen dramatically that a virus can emerge in one part of the world and quickly spread all over the globe. A drought raises food prices on a different continent. A war disrupts the entire global economy. A policy decision in Washington regarding foreign aid results in hundreds of thousands of deaths from illness and starvation. And one person's act of kindness can change a person's life. And that person can change someone else. Cameron Trimble points out that so many of our efforts at social change fail because they focus on solutions having to do with the individual, when our most profound problems really are problems of relationship, the fraying of that web of unity and interconnection. But I love this piece that Cameron wrote. The hopeful part of Indra's net is that healing spreads through the net just as harm does. Fear spreads, but so does courage. Violence spreads, but so does compassion. Despair spreads, but so does hope. The future does not come from people acting alone. It grows out of many relationships, choices, acts of care, and moments of courage that spread throughout the web. Brother Wayne said in The Mystic Heart that the new world will come about because ordinary people will form extraordinary relationships. And those are relationships based on the recognition that we are profoundly, profoundly interconnected, and that everything we think, say, and do has ripples and implications and impact throughout the cosmos. Of course, the second question of the evening about positive media is, to me, really to spread the contagion of healing, to spread the contagion of kindness, to spread the contagion of compassion, to spread the contagion of connectedness. If we are in fact interconnected, we live in a web of contagion, and we determine what will spread throughout the net. Positive media can be a strong, strong force for making the better angels of our nature, as they say, what's truly contagious. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And it's my pleasure now to bring in Kate Sheehan Roach, not only because she's a inner spiritual pioneer, but also because she's the editor of my award-winning books. So thank you for that, Kate. And it's your award as well that we're acknowledging tonight.
Oh, goodness, Bob, thank you so much. What a huge honor it is to sit in the midst of these wise and heartful people. Thank you all. My mind has been wiped clear because my heart has expanded so fully by sitting at your feet. And I have had the great privilege of sitting at the feet of each of these wise women and these wise men over the years. And so it's a true honor so this is kind of a homecoming for me of sorts. So I'll share a little bit about what brings me here, but it's the call that Wayne Teasdale has invited us to. I'm just going to start with Wayne's words here in The Mystic Heart on page 236. He calls us to the discovery and emergence of community between and among the religions and the various cultures around the planet, that this is a vital component of inner spirituality. The active commitment to this larger community is itself a new type of spirituality. So we're called to forge the bonds of community. That's what we're called to through interspirituality. And in my experience, that has involved doing some pretty rigorous bridge building. That's what I'm called to do, is to build bridges. I come from a long line of engineers that wonder why I didn't take that lucrative path, but I'm a bridge builder nonetheless. What I'm seeing now is the need to build bridges, not only within and among the traditions, but crucially, and I feel called to share this tonight, is with the secular world, with the humanist, naturalist, and atheist brother and sister who are together with us going to lift up this world. The article that Diane and I, with the help of some others, contributed to the anthology was about pro-social spirituality, a grand experiment that brought together evolutionary biology and evolutionary spirituality. This idea that cultural adaptation would depend upon using principles forged in the humanities, along with Wayne Teasdale's 9 elements of universal spirituality. Our experience there was just profound in terms of balancing this two-winged bird, to draw in our friend Rumi talking about the beautifully balanced and coordinated, that we could be as beautifully balanced and coordinated as bird wings. That's what Diane and I got to experience building pro-social spirituality, where we helped groups learn how they could better coordinate and cooperate based on evolutionary principles, not guesswork, not, we love a good campfire and kumbaya, but we also need research-based findings, and we want to contribute to that research as well. So from there, I've been sort of spun out another layer into these concentric circles that make up this beautiful unity that Bob has written about in the Way of Unity. That now I'm working with an organization called Just Horizons Alliance, a nonprofit that brings together a form of spirituality we're calling expansive spirituality. So it's like interspirituality. It's sort of the container that holds interspirituality and other visions like that, asking and inviting the boundaries to push out even farther than we can imagine. And the other wing is data science. Not something I planned on spending this phase of my life thrown into the cauldron of AI, but that's what I'm called to in this bridge building, that we are addressing the need for an ethical development and use of AI. We're starting with K through 12 education because the big data has, or ed tech, whatever you want to call it, has already infiltrated the public schools in this country around the world with AI that has not been properly tested. So I want to reflect, as others did, on how the climate movement has been teaching us, particularly a way of thinking that I borrowed from a climate activist named Gus Speth. You might have heard this quote filtering around the world, where he said, "I used to think that the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that 30 years of good science could address these problems, but I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with those, we need a cultural and spiritual transformation. And we scientists don't know how to do that." What a humble, humble voice. Wayne Teasdale called us to humility. I think this secular activist has got the right idea. I spun off that quote and brought it to where I am right now, where I said, I used to think that science could solve the world's empirical problems, and spirituality could mitigate humanity's existential crises. I was wrong. Even as science advances at warp speed and a global spiritual renaissance is underway, our species remains in peril on multiple fronts. It's going to take a convergence of science and spirituality to haul us out of this evolutionary rut, a revolution of mind and heart, powered by intellect and mobilized by soul. So I'll end with saying that this is not easy. These conversations are very difficult when you're talking to someone who's just vehemently, diametrically opposed to the idea that there are more planes operating than the one we can see empirically and prove scientifically. I want to share with you a conversation I had with a brilliant mind and a good-hearted person who was just opposed to the idea that there's more than meets the eye. And as this conversation went on, and I was just being crushed intellectually, I'll be honest, I came up and said, what percentage are you sure you're correct? And this brilliant and honest person said, well, about 70%. I said, oh, good. Now we're talking. We've got wiggle room. We can bridge this divide. And then that person asked me, so what about you? What percentage are you sure? And I said, oh, I'm 100% sure. And they were so offended, like, what do you set me up? And I said, no, I'm 100% sure that I don't have it right. There's no way I could do it alone. that together we can find the way forward. And I'll end right there. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for expanding our understanding of interspirituality. Now back over to you, Kurt.
Yeah, well, wow. Like, thank you so much, Bob. And Kate and Diane and Cynthia and Deborah. I mean, you certainly have done an incredible job of sharing about why messaging of interfaith and interspirituality is exactly what Brother Wayne Teasdale said. All of us having in this unique time access to all of the wisdom resources of our entire human history, all on the table, all at the same time. The question is, as Wayne and Ken Wilber also said, what will we do with that? And of course, we can't do anything with it unless many, many, many of our fellow human beings actually have access to those wisdom resources and know what they are. So we're going to go now to this challenge of how this crucial messaging can compete and get out there in a world that is so obviously dominated by very different values and visions that are often conflictual, divisive, and dark, and not about the values or the way of unity or the way of coherence, both internally and externally, that we've all been sharing about. So we're going to go over to Roger Briggs and Amanda Sanders. And please, Roger and Amanda, take your time. There's no one after us, so don't feel rushed. Roger and Amanda are major leaders in what is called the Positive Media Laboratory, which is an important experiment and emergence. And they're going to tell us about the complexity and difficulty of our current media environment worldwide, something that we're already all aware of, but how we in the transformative community may be able to not only compete with this darkness, but get our transformative messaging out there with the same power, the same impact and reach as those who are telling a very different story than the one we've just been sharing. So Roger and Amanda, over now to you.
Thanks, Kurt, and thanks, Ben, and thanks to all the panelists and people who've spoken. It's been so inspiring. But how do we get this beautiful and much needed vision out to the world? It's not as though we aren't trying. We have books and articles, podcasts, videos, events, classes and programs, games, streaming platforms, apps, and all kinds of social media. But it seems we're mostly preaching to the already converted. Why aren't we more effective at reaching beyond this to more mainstream audiences? I think there are several reasons. And first of all, it's just plain hard to be heard in the media environment today that's so vast, so loud, and so sensational. Literally, millions of people are competing in the attention economy and spending billions of dollars to get into your head. Secondly, and maybe the most important one, we are fragmented in our efforts. We still work mostly in organizational silos, competing against each other for funding, protecting our networks, and promoting our own work above all else. There are a few notable exceptions to this. I'll cite Ben Bowler in Unity Earth and this event that cuts across many, many different organizational silos. So thanks, Ben. But the final thing, I think, is that our language and our tone are often esoteric and academic and not of the people. And our messaging is not coordinated or consistent. We have 10 different ways to say unitive consciousness. If we want to amplify our reach and influence, we need a highly collaborative media ecosystem that broadcasts coordinated and effective messaging through many diverse channels. We need to share resources, knowledge, and expertise so we're not all reinventing the same wheel over and over. We need to bring together the best media people in the world with major funders for the shared purpose of large-scale transformation. This is what the Positive Media Lab is about. For almost 10 years, people in the conscious evolution space have been discussing the need for a media alliance of some kind. Then in late 2025, a core working group emerged to manifest this vision. That was Amanda Sanders, Kurt Johnson, and me. We chose the name Positive Media Lab and began building infrastructure, both digital, financial, and social. Amanda will tell you more about this in a bit, but I'd like to finish up with a graphic that we use that captures what we mean by positive media. Amanda, can you share that one with us?
Yes, my apologies. Just one second. I'll have it up. Go ahead.
Not seeing it quite yet. Part of our mission is to raise awareness that there is such a thing as positive media and harmful media. And we like the analogy with health food and junk food. You know, I see that graphic there on the left. There it is. Okay. So we came up with this idea of a media spectrum, very analogous to a food spectrum, what we feed our bodies and what we feed our minds, and that we need to learn to be discerning about what is good for us and what is not. And so the positive media side really in our minds begins with good journalism, just truthful media that our democracy is requires an informed citizenry to have good information. And of course, we know today this is an absolute shambles. There's so much deception and lying and alternative realities. And as we go down the spectrum to the right and more positive, we get into just educational media and entertainment that's high value entertainment that's uplifting, illuminating, and inspiring. And then finally, at the far right, I think is the space that we're talking about, sometimes called conscious media or evolutionary media, unitive media. And this is what we really want to promote in the world. This is what we really think is transformative. On the left, we don't really have to say much about that, about the bad stuff. But again, what we want to do is empower people to make good choices and to offer them something better. And yeah, it's a heavy lift to think about competing with all the clickbait and the hijacking of the limbic system and the fear-based stuff on the left. But we can do that. We can create attractive media that people want to go to. And so this is one of the core features of the Positive Media Lab is this idea that people can make good choices. We don't want to pass laws that make people do the right thing. We want to attract them into something better. So with that thought, I will pass it over to Amanda.
So one thing that we wanted to cover is that it's a great idea to make beautiful, positive media. You've heard Roger talk about us coming together, but we wanted to leave you with a picture of what does that really mean to come together? And so the best analogy that we found is one of a biodynamic farm. So most people think of a media organization like a tree, right? A tree's got a trunk, it's got if it's a fruit tree, you can name it, right? It is an orange tree, right? So you're a film company, or you are a book publisher, or you are a streaming content maker. So that is how we're often identified. And that's great. We want that to continue. Positive Media Lab itself isn't looking at making more positive media. We think there's great stuff out there. But if you've ever studied a biodynamic farm, you know what happens when you get the right crops together, working together. It actually feeds the ground in a way that the plants help one another. It actually makes it where pesticides aren't needed because you can balance the environment and create a holistic environment where everything is exactly as it needs to be to support one another without the imbalance that creates the herbicides and the pesticides that are needed for traditional farms. And so this is what Positive Media Lab is looking to be, that support infrastructure, the place where the shared tools, the services, the collaboration can happen, where you can be the farmer who brings your crop, who brings what you're already doing, but you're able to do it with others, coordinated with others, and with that extreme benefit and that shared rise, right? You don't get the same crop in a biodynamic farm that you get when you do the exact same crop separately. You actually get a higher yield. And so that's what we're looking at from Positive Media Lab. And we're looking at it across the entire media industry. So all 12 traditional media industry segments, all the digital, all the print, everything in between is where we're looking, because media matters no matter how it's being produced, no matter how it's being conveyed. It's the holistic industry of media that we're looking to encourage and promote the positive media in. And it's not just in one area of the world, it is globally, right? This is a one planet, one people type of problem, and a one planet, one people type of solution. And so we are going at this holistically media, holistically globally. So you may wonder, like, why now? What makes today any different than yesterday? What makes 2026 any different than 2025? We're actually at a great inflection point that makes this, in some ways, a more dire situation where this is needed more, but also a situation where this has the best chance of succeeding. So here's some very unfortunate numbers, but what give us this inflection point. Some of this is very US based, but it's reflected globally in what's going on. So in 2025, the US government's support for independent global media, which for decades was the single largest source globally, right? So not of just the US, even though it is US funding, it was completely dismantled in the matter of weeks. And we've kept track to see, would philanthropy step in and fill that gap? Would there be something else waiting in the wings that would step in? And it hasn't. So we have that as one of the bigger triggers, right? We have almost $1 billion was cut out of the budget. We have 268 million in independent media grants. Additionally, that was frozen across 30 countries. Now, if you go and look at what is the state of affairs globally, country by country, every country is ranked on what it is like for its reporters from a media perspective, and how free is the media? How are you able to actually hear about what's going on in a way where the truth may be able to prevail, even if it exists amongst disinformation as well? And we currently have hit an all-time low where less than 1% of the world's population lives in a country that's rated good or above. The rest of us all live in a country that's not doing so good. And unfortunately, it's getting worse. Even since 2025, it's getting worse. This is a new 2026 number. And in 2026, 100 of the 180 countries declined on their rating value. So it's just continuing to go down. And globally now, the global state of the freedom of press is now classified as a difficult situation. And that's probably the kindest words that they can say about it. So if you want to see that as the Reporters Without Borders, which is the official organization that has been tracking this and reporting on this for years, they do the World Press Freedom Index. This is what the 2026 index looks like. And in case there's any of you are having trouble seeing the colors, or you got some red-green color blindness, this is the only green on the map here as good. And then we've got some yellow as satisfactory. We got a little here, a little here, we've got a little here. But most of the map is problematic, difficult, and very serious. And just because I was curious, I took the 2025 map and I laid it side by side with 2026 just to see how much change. And I was a little disheartened to see how much additional deep red was showing up. So these aren't sort of minor issues of countries going from good to satisfactory. There are some very, very deep issues that are going on globally with media right now. Now, we can all go, like that's horrible, or we can realize that these times, sometimes we have to hit a very deep low for us to come together and for us to say, now is the time, right? That we've actually been operating in a framework and a structure that wasn't very supportable long term. It was very fragile. If it could be cut off, if it could be turned off in a matter of 3 weeks, like we just saw in 2025, if things could go downhill this much, you know, the number that I gave you, where less than 1% of the world's population is living in a good area. In 2002, that number was at 20%. So we've been in a free fall decline. This isn't just something that has happened in the last year or two. We've declined quickly over the last 2 decades. So that tells me that the framework we were built on was not a strong framework. It wasn't the type of framework that could take us forward. And so the media framework that we're looking to come together and build, and the best practices that we're looking at promoting, are the ones that have strength and longevity behind them, ones that can't be turned off, ones that aren't fragile, right? Ones that can't be turned around by government funding or can't be sidestepped by advertising that goes in a different direction, or that are continually begging for annual grants, unsure of what their next year's budget cycle will be. So Positive Media Lab is structured very differently. We have a 3-ring structure. At the core, ring 3 here, we do have a global multi-corporate structure to be able to do the basic things that every system needs, right? Legal, financial, organizational, and administrative governance. And this means that we can do big things, and we can be around, and we can be trusted, and we can make things happen. And we have systems in place and teams and people to make that happen. But it is as small as necessary just to support the infrastructure of what's going on, because the interesting stuff happens in rings 2 and rings 1. So the Positive Media Lab itself, this is the place where everyone who has the passion, the time, and the ability lines up, and you roll up your sleeves, and here is where we're doing the real work. This is where we're creating these shared tools. We're experimenting with what is going to work best, right? Let's talk about the social media platforms that exist today, right? Everything changes. We say every 6 months, but sometimes it's even faster than that with the algorithms. And so together, yes, I can tell you exactly how together we can amplify each other's voices just by operating in unison, even with our different messages and with coordinating, but that's going to shift, and it's going to keep shifting. And so the Positive Media Lab, think of it like a lab. We're tinkering, we're experimenting, we're trying out, we're finding what works so that the greater association can then implement it. And we also have the team that's actually developing the tools and the technology that will allow us to leverage one another, to leverage the knowledge, the information, and the resources we have for each other's benefit. So this is where some of the really fun work is happening, and we would love to have all of you out there who just heard that and got excited to join us with the Positive Media Lab. Now, if you heard that and you thought, this is the right place for me, but I'm missing one of those pieces, maybe I don't have the time maybe I really support this, but my passion isn't quite where I hear you guys at. This is not exactly my number one calling, but I do align with this and I want to support this. Then this is the right place for you. This outer ring, the Positive Media Association, is where all positive media creators, whether you're an individual content creator or whether you are the largest media organization on the planet today, this is where you fit in. And we are arranging, excuse me, initially around affinity groups. These are topic or craft or format-led groups. And some of the ones that you see here are ones that we've already identified that we have a critical mass of people who are interested, just like this group on interspirituality. That is such a topic and inextricable from positive media that it just makes a great place for us to begin. We also are organizing around regional hubs. There is just a certain amount of uniqueness that goes on in the locale of where you are, in your language, in your culture, in your regional events. And so we want to honor and organize around that as well. So we will operate as one, as the larger whole, and we will also operate as these smaller working groups within the larger whole. And with all of these circles supporting one another, ultimately to support everyone who's creating media in this world, and then to create campaigns out to all consumers, which is the bigger circle that you don't see. I guess we would call that circle 0 here, that's not represented. So every consumer of media understands the choice they're making and whether to consume positive media or not, and that this is just as important as the food you eat and the air that you breathe. So we just wanted to give you a little sneak peek and show you that doing some of these things and doing them big actually involves developing some technology to be able to do that. And so we have been doing that. And what you're seeing is actually the beginnings of our collaboration space. We're able to make a space that is tailored to exactly the tools that we need to be able to accomplish everything that you just saw on those 3 rungs. And we're actually building it for all of our future needs as well. So we have a big marketplace of apps that are available to give us the ability to do whatever we need for each and every one of those groups. And in fact, this platform is available for your groups as well. This isn't just specific to Positive Media Lab. We believe that everyone who's watching this is doing something positive in the world. And so if you need something like this to bring together your group to be able to accomplish something positively, we would love to help support you as well. That is exactly what this CoGather platform is for. So if any of this resonated with you, please join us. Go to positivemedialab.com and there's a button to sign up for the newsletter. That is the way that we're communicating to you all of our updates as we've been creating the frameworks, the infrastructure, the things that you've seen here, plus some of the legalities, the beginnings of our fundraising, a bunch more that you can learn about. But for you to get the sneak peeks and to be ready for launch day or to volunteer to actually be part of the lab or part of our Central Corp, please sign up for the newsletter and we will reach out. And all of our newsletters go out with a replyable email address because we actually do want to hear from you. So thank you so much today. And Kurt, I turn it over to you.
All right, so thank you very much. So just to say, there is a lot on the table here. And what I want to say, because some of your heads may be spinning, we have been talking to a lot of people for a long time, and we're still talking to a lot of people right now. And these people are all over there in tiers, TIERS, really waiting to see how this will mature. So we're actually looking forward, particularly to the next few weeks, because we're starting now to have our key people, our key tech people, talk to the key tech people in these other groups and start identifying where in this context we can start to create the partnerings and the alliances that can build us out. So what is on paper here that's achievable through the technology that we are going to be making available, we can do that together. We think that when our tech people talk to other tech people, everyone's going to be excited because they've been thinking the same thing. They've been building, they've been looking for partners, and it's just got to be a gigantic clustering mechanism. So as Amanda said, we'll be just keeping you informed. This is going to be emergence that's multifaceted. Even to get where we've gotten today, it's taken well over a year. It's quite amazing. So let me just be able to close us down here then by giving you that hint. And just to say that I just want to thank all of our guests, Robert Atkinson, Diane Burke, Deborah Moldow, Cynthia Bricks, Kate Sheehan Roach, Roger Briggs, and Amanda Sanders for what has been just amazing tapestry in this discussion. And thanks to you, our audience, because it's your interest and your care in the future of our world that's really bringing us to this place where this emerging constellation can emerge by people identifying how they can start to work together, and they'll have the tech to do it. We've got great tech people. Lots of people have great tech people, and that's how we put that together. So I just want to say in closing, then you can find out more about all of our guests here, particularly at evolutionaryleaders.net. You can find out more about Light on Light and its books and magazines at lightonlight.us. All the magazines are free, so be sure and go to the links there at lightonlight.us. There are 20 different e-magazines there on every subject of world change that you could be interested in. The interspiritual community is at interspirituality.com, and all of the links that are associated with that site, which is over 100 interspiritual groups. So lastly, then, continue to join us through all of the rest of World Unity Week at worldunityweek.org, and regarding all things Unity Earth at unity.earth. So with that, and a huge thanks to this bunch of people out in front of me on the screen, sending you back now to Ben Bowler.
Wow, wow, wow. What a tour de force. That was absolutely amazing, amazing content, Kurt. Bob, thank you. Cynthia for being up at like 2 or 3 in the morning, whatever it is now in Portugal, and Deborah and Diane, Kate, and then Roger and Amanda to close it out. You know, it's really interesting because I mentioned the theme for the 22nd of June is answering the call. And it's a particularly kind of interspiritual theme, isn't it? When you think about, well, who is behind the call, or what is behind the call, or where does the call come from, and how do we respond? But here in the other half of the world, it's the 23rd of June. And our theme for the 23rd of June is let's do something. So I love what Amanda and Roger and Kurt, you're all up to there with the Positive Media Lab. We're kind of bridging these two, essential aspects of awareness into action. And I can feel it. It's really, really exciting. And I love that the Positive Media Lab is so closely aligned through all of you with what's decades and decades, if not centuries and millennia, of interspirituality. And then you've got the message and the medium. So how do we then repackage ultimately what is an eternal, ancient, and yet always renewing message? Bob brought in, a beautiful message of the Baha'i, such a key inspiration for the book and the work of the Way of Unity. So how do we then link the message to evolving medium? And I think that's really exciting, Amanda and Roger, what you're carrying, whatever we can do to support. We're all here to help the Positive Media Lab. Kurt's mentioned synergies with other things that are emerging and unfolding. The Holo Movement's got their new app of the Holos, which has had a lot of love and resources poured into it. So we are breaking new ground, spiraling up, built upon everybody's collective efforts, as you've so beautifully expressed in this group here today. So on behalf of World Unity Week and Unity Earth, thank you for such a lovingly prepared and delivered keynote presentation. Tomorrow, if there's such a thing, we have a lot of great things lined up. So do go to World Unity Week, all events. You'll see there's actually a whole bunch of really beautiful programs coming down. We got Pato, Banton, and Antoinette, Root's daughter, talking about their heroic work in Africa through Ubuntu, and so much else that's taking place there as well. Lawrence Singer talking about with his daughter the way of change through cultural expressions. So it's an exciting time. We are at the turning point or a pivot point here, and just very grateful to each and every one of you for the profound wisdom and the exciting invitation that's been shared today. So thank you, and take care, and God bless, and we hope to see you back in World Unity Week again soon. Again, thank you to all the people who've been with us to witness this and partake in it as well, because that's such an important part of it. Kurt, you are extraordinary.
Shout out, Ben. Some people in the chat have been asking where they can find this to see it again and share it. And I just ask you to probably at the YouTube link that's already in the chat, but then tell us where the different places this was shared, where then it is there permanently that people can go to. I know the YouTube share is there, would be available.
Yep. Yeah, this is going to be, this is in a bunch of places, so it's on YouTube. It's also, if you go to Unity Earth TV, which you could Google Unity Earth Space TV and you will find it, or you could go to unity.earth/TV. It's all there. All the past events, all the past broadcasts are there. They live on YouTube. They live on Facebook for as long as Facebook will have them. But permanently, they're on UETV and in YouTube. Kurt, thanks for the question. Great job.